You can make $1,000 a day filling cracks and resurfacing old driveways. And in this video, my buddy Levi is going to give you the blueprint on everything that you need to know in order to start making money offering this service. Everything from the equipment you'll need, how to price the job, how to get customers, how to actually do the job. And if you stick around to the end, Levi's even going to share with you the biggest mistakes that he made and how to avoid them, as well as tell you about the biggest job that he's ever gotten offering this service. So if this is content that you appreciate, hit that thumbs up button for me. And if you're thinking about starting a business and you need help keeping up with customers, sending estimates, invoices, or collecting payments, then you need to check out QuotaQ, the #1 CRM for the home service industry. It'll be the first link in the comment section and the description. And with that link, you can try it for absolutely free. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the video. All right, Levi, let's talk a little bit about what resurfacing driveways is.
Okay. Yeah, I've actually kind of moved away from calling it resurfacing, and I kind of regret calling it that at first because, like most business owners who do home service, I've realized we all kind of fell into it by accident. I don't know if you hear that a lot, but I fell into the driveway resurfacing work by accident. And then I realized I should clarify that it's driveway epoxy, because a lot of people think that I'm putting a cement material back over the concrete. And I could do that. I think that would be a bit more expensive and unnecessary. I prefer a bare product called 1-part epoxy at Home Depot. So that's what I finished the concrete with. So yeah, that's what I do. I clean the driveway with a pressure washer, degrease it, fill all the cracks, and then put 1-part epoxy over it.
Beautiful, man. And kind of how did you stumble across this? Because like obviously we know that driveways have cracks in them, right? But like how are you like, I can fill this, I can fix this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that question because my background, the thing I'm probably the best at, because I'm not really a jack of all trades, I'm a cosmetics guy, but I love stucco work. I love plastering walls and whatnot. And so I studied that ever since I was a little kid. I was homeschooled, so I got to just study whatever I wanted. I love architecture. And then I lived in Brazil for 2 years, about 8 years ago, and that's where my dad's from. So I got hands-on experience stuccoing, and then I come back from Brazil, and I'm continuing to do my self-employment work, just working for random friends. And then some friends from church hired me to do some little oddball jobs around their house, and one of them was pressure washing their driveway. So I did, and it revealed just these massive cracks and sunken sections. I'm sure you've seen that so many times. And they're like, "Oof, we like it clean, but it's a bit of a mess now. We have all these cracks. We didn't really know how bad they were. Is there anything you can do about it?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, sure. I know how to plaster walls. I've filled cracks in walls. I've plastered over walls. Let me get to that." So I used just a basic mix of Portland cement, sand, and this acrylic bonding fortifier adhesive stuff that you add into it to make it more waterproof and make it adhere better to the concrete. So I filled all their cracks, and then they looked at that and they're like, "Yeah, it looks good. Thank you. But now it looks like the driveway has varicose veins. There's all these like different colors. Is there anything you can do to like bring the colors down to make them match?" And I'm like, "No, not really, but I could paint over it. I've done that at least once." And so they're like, "Okay, cool. Let's give that a try." And then I do it, and they love it. And a bunch of neighbors on their street saw it, and they thought that it was a brand new driveway. And I'm like, "No, a brand new driveway is going to cost you anywhere from like maybe 10,000 on the low end, all the way up to like 25,000, depending on who you go with. But I can do your driveway for between 2,500, 4,000 or something." And so they're like, "Oh, cool. Okay." So I started doing it for a bunch of driveways, and then it just kind of snowballed. So it was kind of an accident. I like building walls. I like stuccoing things. I like doing decorative carving work. But the main thing that I do, the thing that makes me the most money for my business, is epoxying driveways now.
Okay, beautiful, man. And there's two things I want to talk about off of that. First and foremost is what is the demand for this service? Is there a lot of people that want to get this done, especially where you're at? And then secondly, like selling it. So I love the way that you framed it as like, here's the cost to, redo the whole driveway. It's like a price anchoring thing, right? Because like now it's like, oh, that's a huge price, but we can, do this other solution for much cheaper, right?
Yeah. That's actually one of the things that leads to a lot of burnout for me. Is there's a huge demand, and people call me up thinking that I'm some team or that I'm some like, big shot pro with, a bunch of experience. I'm a one-man show, and I can do a really good job, but I'm usually booked out about a year at least. And sometimes I can squeeze in some jobs here and there, but specifically for the driveway resurfacing, the best months to do it are starting in May and then finishing off at early September. That's kind of like the danger zone, is when you're getting into September and the winds are picking up and you get some rains and some dew fall. If there's dew fall on the driveway, it's going to completely ruin it. So yeah, there's a high demand. There's not a lot of time that I can do it. And to do it well, it does take me about a week. And so I get filled up pretty quickly.
Well, Levi, I really like to focus on, the business aspect of things. How, if somebody wanted to start offering this service, what equipment would they need in order to do so?
Well, obviously, all the stuff to do with cleaning the driveway, that's the way you start. I usually begin by making it clear to the homeowners that I'm going to be cutting away sod that's like growing up over the driveways, because that's pretty common with older driveways. Unless they have like a really good landscaper, there's usually sod growing over the sides, which is a problem because when you go to clean the driveway or you go to epoxy it, the edges are going to be muddy and there's not going to be good adhesion there. So it's actually going to start to peel up there. So you got to free up some space on the sides of the driveway, cut away any bushes that are in your way. And then, you got to pressure wash the driveway. And I used to use a few different attachments. My favorite is the turbo nozzle. So I pretty much do the whole driveway, everything, just the turbo nozzle. I actually watched a lot of your videos to see how to do that correctly. And I find it a lot of fun. So I pressure wash the driveway, make sure I didn't splatter on the house. I make sure I clean everything afterwards. I go and I sweep up the debris at the bottom of the driveway, haul it away in 5-gallon buckets. And then after that, I fill the cracks with a cement mortar. So if you have everything you need to clean the driveway, great. The next thing you're going to need is some basic masonry equipment. So I would say people should start off with a wheelbarrow to mix your mortar, a mortar mixing hoe. And then you're going to want to get some probably pre-mixed mortar. I like to mix my mortar from scratch. So I go and I buy a truckload of sand. And then I get the bags of cement and the acrylic fortifier all separately, and that's way cheaper. You get the same product for like less than a quarter of the cost. But I'd say if you're just starting out, just go get the pre-mixed mortar. You can either get the Type S mortar or you can get the there's a Quikrete product called sand topping mortar, and that's pretty cheap too. So you get that stuff. You fill the cracks using just a basic bricky trowel. You can also use what's called a gauging trowel. And then you got to float the cracks afterwards, because after you put the mortar into the cracks and you spread it with the trowel, it can look a little bit sloppy and choppy and stuff. So you got to have a sponge and a bucket of water, and then you dip the sponge inside the bucket of water, you beat off some of the water, and then you go and you massage the filled cracks, and then it makes it all smooth. So after all that, then you would just need basic painting equipment, an 18-inch roller, a 9-inch roller, one of those big totes that you put the paint into. And then, that's about it. Just like basic equipment for pressure washing and painting. And then the masonry equipment is just basically a trowel, wheelbarrow, and a mortar mixing hoe.
Awesome, man. And do people have preferences with regards to what color they go back with on the driveway, or do most people like that kind of gray color on it?
That's a good question. I've just gone to like an asphalt looking color. It's called Peppery by Bear. And I just tell people that's the color that I'm sticking with. And I don't want to do any other colors. And there's kind of a long story behind that. I tried to use the factory picked colors. So if you buy some of the pre-mixed colors that they have, it says slate gray or silver gray or something. And then you put it down over the driveway and it looks blue. I don't know why, but whenever you're trying to get a certain gray, it always ends up kind of blue. Then you also have the reflection of the sky, which is blue. And there's a bit of a satin sheen on the paint. So it ends up just looking blue all the time. And a lot of people don't like that. And then I tried using other colors. There was this one neighborhood I did where one neighbor wanted this color, another neighbor wanted another color. And then another neighbor walked in and said, yeah, that's going to look really weird. We're going to have like a rainbow of all these different colors. So I decided to keep it simple and to not get people to hate me for making all these rainbow colored driveways, because red over here, like brick red, and then like, kind of a forest green. I'm just going to do the asphalt looking epoxy because it matches the asphalt street. Most neighborhoods have an asphalt street going through. So if I at least make their driveway look like that, it doesn't stand out like a sore thumb. So that's the color that I just tell people. I just stick with that. And if they really want another color, then, I guess they'll just have to do it themselves.
Levi, I never knew you had so much power in your hands, man. You could literally change the whole, landscape of a neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I don't want somebody to come back and I don't want to set a precedent. Like I actually had someone ask me if they could paint, if I could have it painted purple. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm so sorry, but I can't paint that purple. I mean, that's going to make me look terrible as a business. A lot of people are going to hate that.
Who did that? Right. I'd like for my driveway to be like the yellow brick road. You know what I mean? You think you can make that happen?
Right.
I'm just kidding. Okay, awesome, bro. So we talked a little bit about, you kind of mentioned some of the average pricing. How are we pricing these jobs? And if you could break it down one more time, kind of what is the average like that you would make on a, driveway resurfacing, if you will?
Yeah, the average price is between 2 and 4K. And the way that I typically price that is by the square foot, which makes it pretty easy. So I don't have to like explain all these reasons for why I'm charging what I'm charging. I just do it by the square foot.
If you need a tool to measure square footage for your customers, just like Levi is doing to price his jobs, then you need to check out the Map Measure Pro feature within Quote IQ. You can measure properties and send a professional estimate within seconds. The best part is this tool is integrated in with the estimates, so you can easily set a square footage price and send professional looking estimates faster than any of your competition, making sure that you beat every other competitor to the lead. So if you want to try Quote IQ for free, you can do so with the first link in the comment section and the description.
So I started looking at some other things. I looked at how much do people charge per square foot for a new driveway, and I was like, whoa, that's reasonably high. It should be high. You have to get rid of all the concrete and then bring in a big crew and a concrete truck and a permit and all that. So I was like, okay, that's pretty high. And then I looked at other things like what do people charge per square foot to do like hardwood flooring inside of a house. And so I did a bunch of research to find out what would seem reasonable. And then I looked at how much I think I need to make in a week and then just kind of came up with that number. So for now, it's $6 a square foot. But I also factor in how badly the concrete's deteriorating. So there's different ways that concrete falls apart. A driveway will crack and then it will also spall. And spalling is when like all the gravel starts to come up off the top and you just get like these divots everywhere. And then there's also sinking that happens with big chunks. Maybe somebody dropped something heavy or there was a tree and it was lifting one area of concrete. So I factor in all those things and I make notes of it. And then it will be $6 a square foot plus $500 because I'm going to need a lot more material and time to fix all these cracks. Or some driveways, like I did one driveway where it had like 2 cracks in it. It was a pretty old driveway, but it was poured at the right time of year and done really well. And it had like 2 cracks. So I did $6 a square foot. And then I was like, I can't charge that. It's going to be too easy. So I knocked off a few hundred. But then that just kind of, it gets me it's a good ballpark. And I typically bring in, most of these driveways take about a week and I bring in about 1,500 to 2,500 take home.
So that was actually my next question is, from the 2 to 4K, how much of that cost is material costs versus maybe labor costs, things of that nature. So I guess so it's half and half. Would you say so?
It has been sometimes. Yeah. I mean, the biggest driveway I ever did had an RV parking lot on the side. It was huge. I charged $6,800 for that. And about $2,300, I think, was the material cost because the epoxy is pretty expensive. Those 5-gallon tubs are like $212, $220. So I needed quite a few of those and I needed quite a lot of cement. So, but yeah, not too bad, I don't think.
Yeah, no, not bad at all. Okay, so can we talk about the week? So you said it takes typically about a week. Can you break down what the week looks like? Monday, Tuesday, you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. If it's going to take me, 5 days, Monday through Friday. I show up and day one is just kind of just staging of materials, like I'm sure you know this too, but a big part of what we do in the home service industry is we wake up and we don't just go to work. We load up our truck. So there's a lot of materials to load up and then I go and I bring them to the job site. And a lot of times I have to go and pick up more materials. So I kind of take it easy on day one. I'm just getting all the materials there. And then I'm taking photos, for insurance purposes, legal purposes, before and after purposes. So I get a lot of photos before I touch anything. And then I start to cut away all the sod, trim bushes, have a quick conversation with the homeowner, make sure that they know what to expect. And I always tell people, what I'm putting on your driveway, for all intents and purposes, it just looks like paint. It's a lot stronger than paint, but it's going to just look like house paint going down on your driveway. So I explain all that to them, and then I will get started pressure washing. And pressure washing sometimes is like, it can be deceptive how long it can take to pressure wash some things. So I usually don't tell myself I'm going to finish all the pressure washing on day one, but I at least get started and I start up near the garage, up near the front door. And then I come back the second day and I finish all that pressure washing. And then what I used to do is I'd go straight into the degreasing phase to get out any of like the trapped oil and efflorescence and stuff like that. And I no longer do that. I go straight to the mortar phase now. I just mix up my mortar in a wheelbarrow and then put it in all the cracks, scrape off the excess, float it with a sponge and water. And then after that's had a day or two of curing and I can tell that it's at least mostly dry, then I'll go and I'll do all of the degreasing. So I use one of those foaming guns that you get at Harbor Freight, and they're used for like cleaning cars. Well, I put industrial degreaser where I need it, and then I put 30-second cleaner, and then I add some Dawn dish soap for the foaming effect and the extra degreasing, and I'll just blast that over the driveway. And then I'll usually go back and I'll scrub over a little bit. I'll work it into the driveway with different kinds of scrub brushes. If it's really dirty, I'll use like a hard bristle brush. If it's not too dirty, I'll use like just a push broom. And then I rinse all that off. And then after I've done that, then it's ready for the priming and the epoxy. So yeah, usually by if I start on Monday, usually by Wednesday or Thursday, I'm putting down the primer. And then one of the other things I learned the hard way is that this epoxy takes a little bit longer to cure than just regular acrylic paint. So they recommend 4 to 6 hours waiting before you put a recoat on there. So sometimes I have to go back even on a Saturday to do that final coat, because I typically do 2 or 3. So yeah, I'm usually finished up by Friday or a Saturday, depending on how much dry weather we have. And the worst thing is when you start in like May or June and summer hasn't quite started yet, there's still lots of like sporadic rains. And so rain will come and I'll have to like wait a few weeks or a couple of weeks to go back and finish a job that I just started and it was almost done. And then I have to wait for everything to dry out to go back and redo it, which is another thing I explained in my contracts when I email people. I say these days may not be consecutive. I may have to start, and then there's a risk of rain, or it's going to get too cold at night and I might have to pause the job and come back a little bit later. So yeah.
Nice, man. So it sounds like where you're located at really does play kind of a big role with regards to weather and things of that nature, like with the cold, with the raininess. So if you were in like a state like maybe Arizona, it might be more conducive to a better environment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, when the temperature gets over 95, pretty much all paint products start to lose their strength. Like you can still paint in temperatures over 95, but you really don't want direct sunlight. So there have been times during like July and August, which are my best, it's the best time of year for me to do driveway resurfacing. But if it's going to be over 95 degrees, I have to wait until a time of day when the sun is not like so directly overhead. So I'll maybe put a coat down super early, or I'll just wait until the sun is past like 3 or 4 o'clock when the sun is kind of getting towards the horizon. Then I go and I put down the layer. But yeah, I mean, I would rather deal with the super hot weather, especially being half Brazilian. I'd rather deal with the really hot weather than deal with the constant rain and the unexpected cold temperatures and whatnot. So yeah, it's very much a seasonal job, and it'd probably be easier if you lived Southern California, Texas, Arizona.
Right, places where it's probably more sunny and just warmer year round. That's awesome. So, Levi, my next question for you is, how can we get customers for this service? It sounds like you got a lot of word of mouth once you started doing it, but like, how'd you initially get those first couple customers?
Yeah, it was kind of all over the place. I did try Yelp, and then I came to regret it, like a lot of people do. Yelp was pretty annoying. I could rant about them another time, but it was mostly people just walking up to me on the streets and saying, "Hey, that looks good. You know, does your company have any space this year to do mine?" So yeah, it's usually just kind of a snowball effect of doing one driveway in a neighborhood, and then some of the friendly people. Something I've noticed is every neighborhood has like a chieftain, I call them, like that one person who just knows everybody, and they're like in charge of the neighborhood watch or something, super friendly. And you meet that person, and then they can get you set up with like 5, 10 other people in that neighborhood. So that's typically how it goes. Word of mouth is definitely a lot of where my work comes from, is people just seeing me do it. And then also YouTube. I've had a lot of people reach out to me on YouTube. I've done at least 4 or 5 driveways so far from people in the area who saw my YouTube video and were like, "Oh, you're in Salem, Oregon. That's so cool. Come do my driveway." And then I have some other people who I'm still supposed to work for next year who also found me through YouTube. And then a lot of people find me through things like ChatGPT or a Google search. They'll just like put in something to do with fixing a driveway on Google, and then my company name will show up.
If you need help getting more customers online and you don't have a website, then you need to check out Budget Built Sites. It's a completely free AI-generated website. All you're going to pay for is the hosting. It's 10 times cheaper than hiring a web developer every single month, and the site is generated in less than 5 minutes. So if you're serious about your business and you're serious about getting more customers, check out Budget Built Sites. It's linked down below, and get your business in front of more people and build your online presence today. The fact that you're pulling so much work off of YouTube is awesome. So
Yeah,
obviously, the easier it is to get jobs, the higher the demand is. And I usually tell people that, because sometimes they'll start a service business because it's something that like they enjoy or they think might, get business, but they have such a hard time. They need to be on Google. They need to be
yeah,
Facebook, sending out door hangers, all this other stuff. But when jobs fall in your lap, that means that there's more demand than there is people actually fulfilling that demand. So,
Oh yeah, big time. Well, and especially just with masonry in general, because I know how to lay brick and lay block and plaster, and most of the guys in the area here, there's not too many businesses in my area that are offering that. And the ones that are, you look at their websites; those people are building hospitals, they're building airports, they're building the McDonald's going up down the street. They're doing like big jobs, mostly commercial, and trying to find the residential ones who are affordable and flexible and able to work with your budget is not something that's super common. And something else I like to point out about masonry work is there's this thing called Lindy's Law, which says that the life expectancy of something is proportional to its current age. And masonry is the oldest profession. It's not prostitution, because even a prostitute needs a building to do their business in. And the oldest
bro,
form of
you sound like you said that one before, huh, bro?
I've said that a few times. Yeah. The oldest profession. I mean, you look at how masonry was done, 4,000, 5,000 years ago. So they're really similar trowel to the one that I'm using. And they would have used a cart or a wheelbarrow to carry their mortar around and mix it. They would have used bricks that in many cases are the same dimensions as the bricks that I'm using. So carpentry has obviously changed a lot. We're not building timber frame homes and pirate ships anymore. Carpentry now involves all these different power tools that you get at Home Depot and Lowe's. It's changed a lot. I still love carpentry, but it's very, very different. Every few decades there's some new gadget you need. But with masonry, it's a very old trade. And I think getting into it's pretty easy because there's not too much math. You don't have to be like a precision obsessed person. You just have to be strong, and you have to love you just have to love playing in the dirt, messing around in the mud, because it is really, really messy, really backbreaking. But yeah, there's a lot of info online about how to do masonry well.
So basically, you like to get down and dirty, is what I'm taking from everything you said.
Yeah, my older brother used to tease me growing up. There's that scene in Monty Python and the Holy Grail where those two guys are out in the fields playing in the mud, and they're correcting the king on all this political stuff. My brother said that was me.
I love it, bro. I love it. I want to get into, Levi, what are the upsells for this particular service? Is there anything else that we can tack on? Any other areas where maybe we might be able to make some more money?
Are you saying like for the driveway stuff, or just like masonry in general?
Yeah, maybe both. So another question I have for you was what other services do you offer? But what I'd really like to focus on is ones that are easier to get into. I would imagine that
Mhm.
like some masonry is more difficult than others.
Yeah,
This one doesn't seem to be as difficult. So
it's
if you
really not.
could, yeah, maybe give me just a couple other little, things that you can offer that kind of align themselves as far as difficulty.
Sure. Yeah, I'll try to answer that question by telling you how I actually got started as a business. It was with building pizza ovens. And I'm still doing that to this day. And I love building pizza ovens, but eventually I kind of want to phase that out of my business if I can, because custom pizza ovens have a lot of variables. It's not just the pizza oven. There's like a countertop and all these walls. And the one I'm building right now that I've actually had to put a pause on for this year has a patio going with it. And there's all these different tiles that the homeowner wants put on it. So elaborate custom pizza ovens is how I got started, but it's pretty stressful compared to fixing people's driveways. So I've kind of leaned more into that. But I do
Dude, that's
plastering.
gotta be the most niche service I've ever heard of,
Yeah.
elaborate pizza ovens. So, but like,
Uh-huh.
okay, if you don't mind, tell me how you get a customer for an elaborate pizza oven build. Did you have to build one first and then like people saw it, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, it all started on Facebook. So I've been doing masonry work obsessively because I've just always been so passionate about it ever since I was about 15 or 16. So I kind of got into it because I realized that it was like super cheap. The materials are cheap, and bricks are just dirt. They're just fired dirt. So I became obsessed with it as a teenager. And then one of the things I started building, apart from just like little walls and little playhouses out of dirt bricks, was a pizza oven. So I made one and shared it on Facebook. And then people liked it. And some people said, oh, one of these days you got to come build me one of those. And then when I was about 22, that did happen. Some friends that I went to Boy Scouts with saw it on Facebook. They hired me to go out and build them a pizza oven. And then I posted that on Facebook, and then another person saw it, and it just kind of spread that way. People were like, oh my gosh, that looks so cool. And then I kept getting better and better at it. And then eventually I was building pizza ovens for there's this cathedral in downtown Portland. And I know one of the priests there. And so he hired me to go and build a cathedral themed pizza oven there. So I was just having fun with it. I was kept posting pictures about it, just mostly on Facebook and talking about it with friends in my church community, and just took off that way. So yeah, that's very niche. And then also driveway resurfacing is very niche. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, if as long as there's as long as there's people willing to pay you for it. So, okay, so back to the original question though. So like we have driveway
Right.
resurfacing with regards to other things that we could have, other things that we can, offer. What would those look like that aren't that difficult?
That aren't that difficult. I would say building retaining walls out of those big, heavy, pre-manufactured blocks at like Home Depot, or there's a company here called Mutual Materials. I don't know if they have that where you are, but yeah, any of those big stores that carry blocks, building retaining walls is something that people always need done. And there's typically no mortar involved. You don't have to use mortar. So you just basically have to get a flat surface and then you can start building those up. So I would say retaining walls. And then also doing like repairs to foundations. Like some people have pretty large foundations that are exposed to the elements, and it might be poured concrete with some cracks in it. It's all dirty, or they might have like cinder blocks that are all cracked and ugly looking, and you can go and you can plaster over that pretty quickly, and then you can prime it and seal it with something to waterproof it. And then there's a huge structural benefit to that.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Levi, I want to get into your biggest mistake that you made with regards to offering this service of refinishing driveways. Did you make any mistakes, or has everything been pretty?
Yeah. Early on, expectedly, I made several different mistakes. I think the biggest one I made was I didn't clean one driveway well enough. Like I didn't use enough degreasers on it, and you just don't know what's trapped in a driveway. There could be all sorts of different chemicals in there, and if you don't clean it and then those chemicals want to find their way out, they're going to either discolor your paint or epoxy, or they're just going to cause it to just peel or rip off. Another thing I did was I didn't rinse off the residue of the cement powder. This is why I do the degreasing after I do the cement patching of the cracks, because there's always a little bit of cement powder that's just kind of sitting on the surface of the concrete, and you can't paint over that. You have to like hit that with a hose on the jet option to get it to come off and scrub it a little bit, because that will definitely prevent the epoxy from adhering to the concrete itself. So I made those mistakes one after another. Homeowners weren't too mad about it. I just went and fixed it for free and then learned from it, made some notes.
Beautiful, man. Levi, my last question for you is what's your biggest job offering this service? I know you talked about the $6,800 job. Was that the biggest one?
Yeah, that was, I think, the biggest job I've done probably altogether. I mean, I guess I've done bigger jobs than that, but I always try to break them up. So that's always my advice to people when you're a sole operator and owner of a home service business. You can take large jobs, you can bite off more than you can chew, but you just got to break it up into a bunch of smaller jobs, which is actually, it reminds me of my biggest mistake I've made in business, just in general, which is taking on just really gigantic jobs and then not having like a clear end in sight. Like you really got to break stuff up and tell people, I'm going to do this for you and I'm going to finish it around this time. And then when that's done, we're going to have to negotiate other aspects of that job, because one person can only do so much.
Yeah, and that's how you get yourself in trouble, because they'll be like, "Oh, can you add this on? Can you do this?" And then before you know it, you're doing all this free work, and you're like,
Yeah.
"What am I doing here?" So, beautiful, Levi. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing this with us, man. I know when I found your video, I was like, I didn't even know this was possible. So I'm really glad you could come on and kind of talk to us about it. Every guest that comes on the channel has picked the word of the day. What would you like the word of the day to be?
Tradition.
Tradition. Do you want to explain it at all? You don't have to.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, tradition. I like how this one architect, I think it was an architect. I can't remember the guy's name because he was like Dutch or something like that. But he said, tradition is the sum of successful innovations. And then it gets passed on. Well, there's a reason for that. So, you look at masonry and it really hasn't changed that much. That's because traditional masonry, it just works. Brick and mortar works. Cinder block works. Cement works. A lot of people have a lot of struggles with it. Most people don't even know the difference between cement and concrete. They don't know any. I hear a lot of people call it masonry instead of masonry. It's not a very well-known trade, which is unfortunate. That's why I'm glad that you reached out to me, and I appreciate us doing this call, because one of my goals in life is just to spread the gospel of masonry and get more people interested in building out of earthen materials.
Beautiful, dude. Well, let's do some more, dude. You have some other any retaining wall videos. You have just some of the other services that you talked about on this video. So we could do plenty more like this. Really appreciate you.
Awesome.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on, Levi. The word of the day is tradition. If you guys made this far in the video, comment that down below. We'll hashtag get rolling. But until next time, hustle hard, get that money, baby. Peace.
All right, thanks, man. God bless.
Thanks, Levi.